We're going to talk about what do we have today? We're going to talk about tooling around Datastar because I think we launched just over a month ago. It's been
Yeah,
a while.
it has been a
Um,
while.
and it's been maybe on the surface kind of quiet, but Johnny, we've all been busy with stuff that is kind of builds on top of Datastar. Uh, Before we get into that, though, we last time we did a bit of swearing. No swearing this time, please, because it's more work for me in the editing and post production. And we have some kids listening, possibly in the back of the car or wherever. I actually thought we'd start off with a little kids segment for the little kids and the big kids. So I'm not sure if you've prepared something, but I prepared a little trivia. So I'll kick it off so you can kind of, so my one
Okay, let me
is
think.
if you hopped in the car and you drove straight to the moon, how long would it take you? And this assumes, assumes you could just breathe, like there's oxygen for you, and let's just forget about gravity for a moment. I know it's kind of an important thing, but you're able to drive at, let's say, constant speed of 100 kilometers an hour. That's around 60 miles an hour. How long do you think it would take you to get to the moon, Delaney? Take
Let's
a wild
see,
guess.
25,000 hours.
Uh, okay, do the math to convert that to something that we can approximate to
I
days
would, I would
or
guess in 3 years because I know the moon is really
3 years.
20. Well, it's 250,000 miles away. I don't know what that is in freedom units, but I'm guessing it's roughly. Let's say it's like 2.2 or something. So let's say 550, and then you do so five. I can't do it on top of my head. This is why I have computers. I'm bad. I actually have slide rules. I could probably do it on a slide rule. In fact, let me see.
I
I have a
no
slide rule
no no.
here.
I think
Okay,
I think you're taking this more seriously than intended. The
I
idea
might
is that
be.
you just pick a number.
Okay, well, I know that's going to be probably, I would guess a year. Like it would be my
Okay.
rough guess, but I actually have like an old like slide. I have a bunch of slide rules, but like I could actually probably figure it out. I just like that's not what this podcast is about. It's Delaney's love of slide rules. So
You're not too far off. And actually, it depends on, how close the moon is to the
right,
Earth at
right.
any point in time. But on average, it would take you 160 days, which isn't a
Okay,
crazy
that's
amount of
that's
time.
actually less
Like,
than I thought. Yeah.
it's a long road trip, but you could make it, right? You could make it there and back. How long would it take you to get to Mars, which is, the next planet out from Earth?
Oh, if that was the case, 5 years?
It would
No,
take you
more than that.
62 years.
Yeah, more than I was going to say. That's way off. I'm off by an order. Yeah.
And that's when Earth and Mars are
Sure.
closest, because of course, they're on totally different orbits.
Yeah.
At the furthest point, it would take you like 450 years. So
Nice. Yeah.
you wouldn't make it there. And even at its closest point, you might make it there, but you wouldn't make it back because the Earth and Mars would be getting further away.
Yeah, it's been interesting with my kids, like trying to explain how big space is. It is a interesting challenge
Yeah,
to try to explain. Even the jump between Mars and Jupiter is ginormous, right? Like
yeah,
it's huge. So yeah.
yeah. We can't really fathom it. Anyway, that's my bit. What have you got?
So most of my Twitter stuff, I'm going to steal from our Discord. Someone just put a meme up that said that like that we're talking about floppy disks and all that.
So ask it as a question if you can. I think I know what you're going to
Oh,
say.
so for kids out there used to be these things called floppy disks, which you actually had to put your data on, and they only had enough data for like a quarter of what a modern picture is. So around a megabyte of space. The smaller the good floppies was around a meg of space. So how many copies of Datastar can you fit on a 3.5-inch floppy?
It's going to be 100 and something, right?
Yeah, it's 131. You fit 131 copies of Datastar on the copy, which is pretty good. In fact,
It's
on
pretty great.
Twitter, I put on Twitter, and like a couple of minutes later, someone said on the ZX Spectrum micro drive, you could still fit 8 of them, which I thought was amazing. Like even going way back further than that, you could actually fit 8 of them on like some of the original hardware for hobbyists and stuff. So, yeah, no, it's a fun little bit of trivia that like
Very
that's
cool.
fun.
Great. Well, getting to Datastar, things have been really smooth. Like we had, I just had a look at the repo. We have something like, actually, let me just check exactly. But we have something like 7 open issues. Half of them are like feature requests or documentation improvements. The others are kind of they're bug reports, but I don't think they're actually bugs. So we're really staying on top of things, fixing things as we go. So we've had a couple of release candidate versions. I think we're at 4 now, version 4, and it's kind of smooth sailing now. It's we're just giving it time, right? Giving it time for more people to use it, put it into their production project. What's interesting is that, yeah, we're working on tooling around Datastar. So, where should we kick this off? Should we talk about, I think, well, let's talk about the inspector briefly, because that's been getting a lot of attention. You've been using that for work, right? So the
Oh
inspector
yeah.
is a Datastar Pro features that lets you, uh, well, you can view all of the events that Datastar is firing off or receiving, and you can view all of the signals. And you added a pretty cool feature where you're able to put your mouse over a signal name and then it highlights it in
Yeah.
in your browser with this nice cool effect. So you're able to quickly identify where that signal is being used on the page, and you just put in a PR for the ability to edit signals in line. So in your inspector, you can actually just click and start editing the value of signals, and you see those update in real time. So it's pretty cool, and it goes both ways.
Yeah, and just so that people are aware, right now, if you're editing text or something, it does it on the focus change because until I rewrite Datastar or the inspector to use Rocket, which we'll get into, doing that is very slow. So it's not actually using the direct signal; it's doing like a bunch of web component stuff. So right now it'd be slow, so it's on focus out, but it will come where you'll be able to type it, and it's just like typing it anywhere else,
Right.
which is really really exciting. And it does make it nicer, and it works in the object view and in the table view. So it works in both ways. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this. I think this was since last time, but I'm not sure. We added another tab for viewing local storage. Anything that so persisted signals in local or session storage is also there in the inspector. So the inspector is like only going to get better over time and more functional and more helpful when you're like, you know, working with signals and trying to debug what's going on. Um, so I think for anyone, I know that some people have bought Datastar Pro simply for the inspector. They're not particularly going, like,
Well,
they
and
don't have any
honestly,
need for the plugins.
yeah, right now I think that's where the real value is because I know people don't like me gatekeeping certain plugins under Pro, but you know what? Like you shouldn't. It's a support word, and you shouldn't be using these to build the kind of websites we need. And I will take anyone up on that challenge anytime. The thing is, the inspector is where the money's really at right now, and it helps so much. I have a weird situation where I have like dynamic dashboards that are constantly changing, like forms that you can edit on the fly. So I can have hundreds of signals or thousands, like not a thousand, but I can have a lot of signals on the page at one time. And the inspector is amazing. Like I'm dogfooding it all day long. And I do think there's a lot of value there as you go to a more hypermedia focused framework. You still shouldn't have a lot of signals on your page in most situations. But when you do, you want to know exactly that you're putting stuff in the right place. So
Yeah.
it is helpful. And I think that's the thing that people should be using Pro for, honestly. Like you shouldn't be using the plugins that are there right now. As we go further, there are going to be things like Data Animate's going to get better. There are going to be plugins I'm like, no, you really should use these ones. But I almost want to put like an asterisk behind the ones that's like, you don't need this, guys. Like
Yeah. I
that's a
think
deeper
it
conversation.
also depends on what kind of app or site you're building, right? I was on a call with somebody the other day and we were looking at the query string plugin, which is a pro plugin because they're doing a bunch of filtering and they want links to be shareable, and they also want to be able to go back to them. And then we were using the new filter thing where you get regular expressions to filter which signals are synced to the query string and back. And we were getting stuck on something because I said, "Oh, we should open the inspector because that's what is built into the inspector. You can literally put a regular expression in there, and then you will get a live, view of which signals are being filtered in and
Yeah.
out." So So it was great
Well,
to be able
and
to use
see,
that.
here's where the other thing, like for example, query string, like people were like, "Hey, I really want that. I got that from Vue or Solid or even or
Hmm.
HTMX has these kind of things." But my thing is, no, you don't. And what I mean by that is that you should actually be probably having a thing on your page, like you click it and you get a deep link that is a cache thing that you've done extra things in the back end to make that a like stable thing. Because if you just make it the parameters because of hypermedia, you're not guaranteed that that link is going to be there next time. Like it doesn't make sense. Where if you have a deep link to basically a sim link to this state, that's a much better situation. Again, that comes down to us being better about explaining why we think these are bad, or not bad, but like they're great if you're porting something from a spa or something over, and it's kind of a stopgap. But it is not the ideal in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about, or you talked about gatekeeping plugins. It's not so much gatekeeping, it's a support burden, but it's also, these are plugins that have kind of niche uses, right? You very often are, most projects are not going to require animate. Most projects perhaps aren't even going to require query string. So it's also a way of keeping the core framework lean. And of course, when you get Pro, you have the bundler, so you can pick and choose if you want to keep the size down. Otherwise, you just grab everything. Um, I think that's an important aspect as well, right? That we give you just the bare minimum, but pretty much everything you need. And if you need to build on top of that, well, you can do execute script and you can write JavaScript in your expressions. You can do pretty much everything that you can do with Pro plugins already. It's just going to be a little bit more work.
Well, and just so that people are also clear that they're like everything that's in Pro, you could write yourself. I use the same interface that everyone else uses. There's nothing special or magical about Pro other than it's just things that go deeper or are expensive or are a support burden. Like that's just stuff that's in Pro. Like there's nothing special about our plugins. And that like if people want to put the effort into doing their own, like you should.
Right. And some people have asked, you want to bring this up as well, because some people have said, well, this was available in beta and we took it away from them. And you've described this as like V1 was a fork of the beta. And the beta is still, like the beta versions, they're still there in the GitHub repository. Anybody is free to go back, look at how something like replace URL or the persist plugin, how those were built. And if they choose to, they can, either recreate those plugins for themselves or just pull out the functionality, put it into JavaScript, because all persist is really doing is, writing to local storage, which is part of the JavaScript API.
Yeah, the thing is that I know it's probably a vocal minority, but it still is coming up enough on the Reddit and on YouTube and all these other things that people are saying I'm taking things away. Like it's still there. I just didn't want to go that route, and I'm making my own choices. I would you not see me upset at all if there all of a sudden became a Datastar Libre, which is a fork of the other one, and everyone rewrote their stuff to be like, great,
Yeah.
do it. Like no one's stopping you from doing it. And someone was saying something akin to, what if Linus made his own operating system that was a fork? Like, yeah, he has every right in the world to do that. You don't get to dictate that in open source. So it's not that I took anything away. Our repo still has all the other stuff. There's also someone that said like I got banned from our Discord. We don't ban people. Like we just ask you to stand by a certain thing. It's interesting the like vocal minorities when it comes to these things. But
Yeah.
I will say like I'm not going to apologize for like taking the open source and building something on top of it that I want to support going forward. Like you're not going to get an apology out of me for doing that because I didn't take anything away from you. I took away my future support of you, but that doesn't mean took anything away. Just go to the beta, like write your own plugins, like have fun. You won't see me
Right.
mad at all about that. But I do get kind of upset when people say that I'm lying or stealing or rug pulling like my future work because I could also go dark again and like not
Yeah.
show anything and it would still be open source. Like it's an
Right.
interesting situation for sure.
Yeah, and this is kind of the open source software world where I think people have come to expecting everything to just be available for free, and what you need to give back is kind of like discounted. As soon as there's like a price tag on anything, it's like no, just shun it away. Um, but actually, in the last month since we recorded, there have been some things that have come up. Adam Wathan was on podcast one of the creators of Tailwind CSS. He was talking about the struggles that they're having currently. He said, I pulled out a quote where he said, everyone's using Tailwind and we get nothing for it, right? Like Tailwind CSS is purely open source, and Tailwind Labs, the company behind it, built. Uh, it was called Tailwind UI. Now it's called Tailwind Plus, which is a lifetime purchase where you get these UI components. But of course, it's opt in. Like you don't have to, and because it's a lifetime purchase, it's a one time thing. And at some point, the marketplace is saturated, or their sales have been, kind of saturated, and at that point, their support burden is just increasing, but their sales are not growing anymore. And I think that's the point at which they found themselves. Also, there's a good podcast, DHH, on Lex Friedman, where he talks about his journey through open source with Ruby on Rails. And he says often with open source, he says worse is better for adoption. So he's kind of saying like it's easy to go the worst route if you want quick adoption, but then you end up with something that is worse. And we're trying to really say, no, we're intentionally making these decisions to ensure that Datastar has a long and fruitful journey and we're able to support it, because we've even had growing pains, right? With new people coming into the community, asking questions, trying to do SPA kind of stuff, and we're seeing that growing too fast is not good. Like it's overwhelming in terms of support. It's not really kind of helping us because it's distracting us from what we really should be doing. So I'm happy to report that we're still growing steadily. I think we're close. We're getting close to 3,000 stars on
Oh,
GitHub.
really? I haven't checked in a bit.
Yeah.
That's great.
The Discord community is growing steadily too.
Yeah, we're right at 1,400 people on Discord now, so that's good.
Yeah, that's really great. And like I said, we don't have many open issues. Like and that's a good thing. We're able, like the ratio of new bug reports or issues to us being able to kind of deal with them and respond to them is really good. I had a look at HTMX and they have something like 500 open issues, which to me just sounds like I'm an inbox zero kind of person. That sounds like my nightmare.
Well,
So
the
I'm
other
glad
problem
we're
too,
not there.
it's not even just the issues. When I look last, especially even with the PRs, which is more what I'm interested in for that, there's ones that go back 2 or 3 years that haven't been
Yeah,
addressed or
yeah,
anything. Like that's the kind of thing that like either needs to be closed or like too much has changed in that time. Like what's going on? So that's
yeah,
to me, that's the lifeblood of the thing is like it's fine if PRs are being open and then closed, but there's like no activity on things. And that's to
yeah,
me, that's sad and concerning. And that's fine. Again, open source is open source. You can't like dictate what people work on. And if it works for you, it works for you. Like I know when I was in the HTMS community, I got made fun of for like trying to do real time stuff with hypermedia. Like, so if it doesn't fit the needs, it doesn't fit the needs. And if they're happy, they're happy. But we certainly aren't. And we're moving forward and trying to really push what can be done.
yeah. Yeah, I hope we don't get to a point where we're just overwhelmed with issues, because they are time consuming, right? Like we've had a few PRs that have come in, good ideas, good intentions, but it's like it's a slog to get through them, because it's like a couple of changes of code is like uh, it's how do I even explain it? It's like one small error can like have huge knock-on consequences. So we have
Yeah.
to go through it line by line, and sometimes people provide tests, but very often they don't. So there's just a lot to it, and I'm finding that the fact that we're developing in a private repo is actually working out really well.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
I can't imagine, you know, having 10, 20 PRs open, and I guess that's how things build up over time. That's how like
Yeah.
you get overwhelmed and can never catch up again.
Yeah, no, you guys have been doing great because I've kind of been going off into space and doing some interesting stuff. But it's been great to have the backup for that because I know a year ago or whatever, it's roughly around then when we started talking a little bit less than a year
Sure.
ago. Um, there's no way I would have kept up with what I'm working on right now. I would have completely ignored everything that's going on and the issues unless it was something I was actively hitting. So having a team to do this is the only way that can happen. So I mean, that's been
Yeah.
great.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of support stuff in GitHub and some of the SDKs, um, the ecosystem around Datastar. Johnny's been dealing with the kind of lower level things and the optimizations, dealing with bugs, and you've been off, yeah, on your own space adventures, which actually we can just segue right into, I think. Um, Talk about Rocket. I'm pretty sure we've mentioned Rocket here, but I think it would be good to first talk about like where the idea came from, or what spurred it on, which was the scoping, which we did talk about, but just to bring that back and maybe discuss, how Rocket solves that before we get into the syntax and the developments.
Sure. So yeah, we did try to before the V1 kind of cutoff of features. Um, we did try to get scope signals in. And what that is, it basically means it has a local scoping. Like you can basically say, hey, here's a scope to start doing signals in. And then once this scope goes away, all the signals go away automatically and stuff. The TLDR on that is it's really complicated and hard to get right, especially in every language and all that stuff. And the irony is that there's already something that does lifetimes and scoping and all that stuff. It's called web components, and we should probably do that. So the idea of Rocket is, hey, things like lit, things like facet, things like view single file components. These are all really nice features, but it's very imperatively driven. It's very it's great. I've used Lit for years, but I've also found that like most of the time I can do that stuff. If it's imperative code, I can try TypeScript and write less code than what Lit does. But what Rocket's doing is basically a declarative version of web components for most things. You still have imperative stuff that you can do, but most of the time your stuff gets declarative and you get to use just regular Datastar stuff. So you pay a one-time 5K cost and then everything else just becomes regular HTML. Like it's just HTML template tags and that's it. You can have script tags and all that stuff underneath, but the general gist is it's just HTML, just like you build anything else in the backend.
So I'm thinking about how people can imagine this. Something like lit, or even if you write your components in TypeScript, you need a build process, right? Here, there's no build process required because Rocket will be built into Datastar. It will actually just be a Datastar plugin, right? And when you say you can define your web components declaratively, you do that using data attributes, right? So it'll be something like data rocket. You give it a name that will turn that template, which I think is the HTML tag that you put it on, into a web component with that name. Then you define some props. Everything goes in data attributes.
Yep.
So yes, you can go imperative if you want, write actual JavaScript inline, but otherwise you can define everything in data attributes with expressions, I believe.
Yeah, so a perfect example is like if people have seen my Synadia demos of me doing like drone games and real time AR demos and stuff like that. Um, I've had things where I basically have web components that have protobufs inside of them, and so in Lit, I would have to write encoders and decoders and do all this stuff imperatively. Well, in the Rocket stuff, I do like data underscore underscore binary and then give it the data in base 64 and it automatically turns it into U8 and I can decode it from there and do all these things. Like there's things that are just hard to do. I like Lit, but there's a lot of things that were like, man, if I was going to start over, what would it look like? So the codecs I think are better. The way you interact with things is better. And you can do tag template literals and all that stuff, but you can just write HTML in HTML. It's a lot smaller. So far, every single thing I've ported over from a vanilla one or even from Lit has gotten smaller every single time. So that's exciting and not having a build step. And the nice part is that you can just point it at a bunch of templates at a URL that's dynamic. And now you have a dynamic UI library. So if you're like, hey, I'm only using alert, blah, 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 you can make that part of your request and then get back just the things you need. And there you go. You now can do dynamic web components. And that's not even something people have even thought about before. And it's a really exciting area, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so to me, the big appeal is number one, you're leaning on the Datastar syntax, right? So you're using data attributes. It's just a plugin. You can still use signals inside of it. Signals are automatically scoped now for you within that web component, and that's kind of what drove this whole thing initially. But now we've landed on this pretty amazing syntax that allows you to do this all declaratively, and there's no build step. So there's no rebuilding. It's just all there in line in your HTML, perfect locality of behavior. And as you say, if you need to pull it in from an external source, you can do so too.
Well, and the thing that's interesting, as opposed to like with Lit or any of these things, there's a 5K cost that you pay for every build. So if you're trying to break up your components, you're paying that 5K cost every time, or you have to build them all together. And now you have a UI library, but you only maybe use some of it, right? So there's this weird cost of the thing with the Rocket stuff. You pay that once ever, but no matter how many you use, or if you mix and match and do all that stuff, it does not matter. You pay it once, and that part that's you pay once is cached forever. So it's just part of the DSR stuff. So that's where I think it is a huge step forward. I kind of got into a little bit with Ryan of the Remix team. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't like this syntax," and I'm like, "Okay, but that's like saying I like I don't like SQL, so I'm going to write SQL builders and all this stuff." And my thing is like, just learn SQL. Like, you don't need all these SQL builders and all this stuff. Like, all that stuff turns into what I just gave you. So why not use the declarative? I think the declarative approach for most things makes sense. To be clear, inside of your component, you still get a script tag that you do data on mounted, and then you just do regular JavaScript stuff in there that you need to. But because of all of the data attributes that you get outside of that, you don't need a lot of things. Like, that's the thing that I'm finding, is that you don't need a lot of imperative syntax to build most web components if you do it the Datastar way. So I'm pretty excited about that, honestly.
Yeah, it's actually really nice that you can start declaratively and see how far you get with that. And if it makes sense to at some point, if you're writing a lot of code, put in a script tag, and now you get in your IDE you'll get proper type hinting and all of that stuff.
One thing I do want to bring up, and this will like make people mad, maybe or not, is that, you know what? This is a pro plugin. Like, the Rocket stuff is going to be in pro and stay in pro. And part of that is because we can always take it out if we want to later, but I'm not going to get like told that I'm rug pulling stuff, because again, these are just plugins that anyone could write. There's nothing special about, there's no special syntax that we get access to things you don't. Anyone could do this. And I'm going to keep it in pro because it makes sense there. And uh, Anders actually had brought up a really interesting point about this, is that people are like, well, you can't open source things. Well, guess what? He's going to open source all of his Rocket components, and you would just need Rocket. You'd actually need Pro to run them, but he's all the templates and all the stuff, because it's just HTML. He's going to open source all that stuff. So it's kind of like when you're doing a modding, if you've done games like Doom or Skyrim or anything like this, you buy the game and then you go to Nexus mods and you literally download the mods you want for that game. So the mods are open source, but you still need to run the game. We're going with that model of like, look, open source all the things, but to run it, you need the license. Like, that's it. I'm not going to fight people on it. And if they want to be involved, great. Well, I'm planning on actually making a marketplace of the mods and stuff. So, like, of the templates and all that, because
Yeah.
that's exciting. In fact, there's a good chance that the Stellar UI and the web components that we build will be probably open source, but you'll need Rocket to run them. Like, I think that's a good model, for a sustainable model going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think because you give everybody the ability to build and share what they've built, right? So you get like, you could have one UI component library, or you could have many, or you could
Yeah.
have like variations
Well,
and
and the beauty of it is you can pick and choose with the Rocket
yes,
style. You just pick and choose the pieces you want. So if we build a marketplace, you literally could have just I want this, I want this, I want this, and all it would do is just put them into one like template, like set of template tags. And the nice part is, because each of these things will be cached, we'll probably just build that into the website, because it's not like a heavy lift for us, and we just cache them off
yeah.
and we give them to you.
For anyone who's used something like Iconify, where you can just,
Mm-hmm.
grab an icon and you have thousands to choose from, and you just, grab it, use it on your site, and you don't need to worry about the license because it's open source, right? So you've already got your license to run Pro, and now you can just use any open source UI component available.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
that's a great way going forward, because it makes it sustainable, but also, like, you're open source. You're not stopping the open source. You're just saying, hey, we still have a support burden with supporting all of these different things. Like, it makes sense, and it's a lifetime license too. It's not like we're nickel and
Yeah.
diming or rug pulling or anything like that. Like, you get access to all this stuff. In fact, you get access. Like, you get access to the code that made Rocket, kind of thing. So you could say, like, we're not hiding things from you.
Yeah. And in terms of like the effort gone into Rocket, you've been working primarily on it. I know Johnny's getting involved now too. There's a lot to it because there's like a bunch of attributes, right? Even things people might get excited about this. There's data for, data if, right? I think I
Yeah,
saw data switch, so
yeah.
or maybe Rocket for, Rocket if, but um, essentially a bunch of attributes that you had to create to be able to do web components declaratively, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and also there's things. The interesting thing is it's actually like all the template stuff that's happening. Like, we have things like closing tags and a bunch of other helpful features that don't aren't valid HTML, but make it nice and valid. So you get a lot of the niceties of Vue, but without any of the build steps or anything. But that actually turns into imperative code. So we actually convert that on the fly. And the irony is that I actually started working on, I've already shown Ben this, a transpiler that you can take any URL to any Rocket code and it actually transpiles it down into the minified JS for you on the fly, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to see your declaratively written Rocket component turned into imperative code, and then as a next step, if you want to see it fully compiled. Yeah, it's pretty
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing that you've been working on is Stellar
Mhm.
CSS, and I know that that's maybe been put on the back burner while you work on Rocket, which you're going to use Rocket then to power Stellar. So,
Yep.
Stellar looks incredible. And since the last time we spoke, I guess last time we didn't cover much of Stellar. Um, you have an entire UI page which allows you to visually create your scales and um, essentially your design system.
Yeah, I've been excited about. The thing is, the parts that I've shown are not the hard parts, right? Like, there's a lot going on under the hood, and I have literally right now I have 21 issues. If I get through those 21 issues, Stellar's done, because the core ideas behind it are all worked out. Everything, like, the hard part's been done. Now it's about getting into the weeds. And the problem is how I built that really depended on if I was using web components for certain parts or not. And I was like, well, I could do this by hand in vanilla ones, but this is a good time to dog food the Rocket stuff. And also, I want to dog food Rocket at work. So I've already ported stuff like e-charts, and I've been working on virtual scrolling for work stuff. And so all that kind of flies together. Like, it's one of those things where all of these things need to be built, and we're kind of building the track as we're going along. It was a
Yeah.
Walton Gromit thing of building the track as you go. That's kind of what it feels like right now. But the exciting part is, now that Datastar is done, we can work on these exciting, like, these things move really quickly because we have a good foundation. Though, speaking of foundations, I'm going to bring this up. You might cut this, but the data on load, uh, you and Johnny are having a little debate right now. It'd be interesting if, like, in the YouTube comments of like what people think about this. Like, even though we're right at V1 and data on load is a used everywhere, it might have issues. I'd actually like to hear about that from your guys'
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, this is important. Like, because we're in RC, this is the time if we're going to make any final breaking changes. In fact, for the upcoming RC, we did make one minor change where only events that were trusted were actually firing. So only like if a human clicked on a button, would Datastar actually trigger an expression in data on click. And a few people mentioned that they had what was it, a Chrome extension that wasn't working because of this, because the Chrome extension gives you shortcuts and it's trying to do the clicks for you, and Datastar was not disallowing it. And I pushed back on that a little bit because I was like, okay, we're not going to change Datastar for one Chrome extension. But one person in particular made a very good argument in Discord about how this kind of strays from the norm and how Datastar does most things, and made a very good case for it. And at that
Yeah.
point, we discussed it internally, and we decided, yeah, this is the way to make a good argument and we can't disagree with it. Therefore, we're going to change it. So we actually change the default so that events triggered by scripts will actually be executed. So a lot of people will be happy just because now their Chrome extension works, and everybody else probably won't notice it. But
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of thing we're looking at now before
Well,
we
that's what the RC is about,
pull
right?
the
It's
plug
about the
on
last
the
bits of
stable.
defaults and letting
Yeah.
people play with it. I mean, it's great. This is a good time.
And the thing with data on load is that it's kind of poorly named, right? Because on load of
Sorry,
what?
that's me. That's been there since day one of like
That is
because
on you, but
it
since
is on
I've
me.
been involved, I've thought a few times of renaming it, and I've just never been able to come up with the right name. Like unload is just so clear. Like when this element kind of loads on the page, this expression is executed, and you can add a delay to it. The thing is with morph that sometimes that will fire again, or with morph it won't fire again, but with replace it will fire again. So on load is a little bit misleading in terms of how it's actually been implemented. So yeah, Johnny mentioned, should we rename this or should we just change the documentation or should we partially change the implementation, which we did. There was some legacy stuff in there about with a set timeout that we were able to remove, which I think will help a little bit. But I
Well,
think the rest is going to come down to documentation because even if we rename it something like data on init or data on apply, we still need to explain what that means.
yeah. Well,
And
the one thing that
either
have,
way,
I haven't run into a lot, but now that people are using Datastar in ways that I didn't, think about, um, there is a window load event like on DOM ready load event, and really on load should be targeting that most likely. Like if you do on load underscore underscore window, it should be hooking into that event most likely, so that did the page load. But again, Datastar probably your DOM is already loaded if you've gotten to that
yeah,
step. So
that's the thing.
it's a weird situation of like I never used that other one because like unload doesn't mean that at that moment. Like it's already it's loaded kind of thing. So um just to be clear for anyone listening, I have no opinions on this. It's going to come down to Johnny and Ben. I'm bad at naming. Apparently, I'm good at naming projects, bad at naming functions. So uh, I'm staying out of that one. So if you have any issues going forward with how things are named, you can blame Ben because I think that's the thing that actually brought you onto the project in the first place is telling me I am bad at naming functions and explaining
I
functions.
I told you were bad at many things in the beginning, but half of the time I was wrong. Like half the time I had to eat my words, and I think that's what made us a good team initially. That we argued about the right things, and we like whoever cared more usually won out, and that was usually for a good reason. In this case, I don't care that much. I want it to be like data on load. I don't think you can really beat that. And like I said, we're gonna have to document it either way. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just a case of better docs, which is that's on me too.
Yeah. Either way, it's Ben's fault. I just want
Yeah.
that to be clear to the entire because a lot of people I'm gonna get a lot of hate for Rocket, I'm sure. Less so for Stellar because it just ends up being CSS variables. So I don't think people are gonna hate me as much, but there's gonna be things in Rocket that I'm sure Twitter's gonna think that I'm crazy. But that's fine.
Oh, I
That's
thought you
fine.
meant the name or the.
No. I just meant
But
all of Rocket is gonna be people being mad at me. Like data
I'm
on
fine with
load,
that.
like being named wrong is on you. So yeah, I know you're fine with this. I'm fully aware of your position.
And uh, obviously, Rocket being a plugin and a pro plugin, it's going to be in the bundler, so you're going to be able to opt in or out of it. We may even, we'll see. Well, we've yet to decide on this, but we may have like a Datastar Pro with Rocket and without Rocket, so you don't even need to go to bundler. You'll be able to get it in the
Well,
repo
just
directly.
so that people are aware, it is 5 kilobytes like the lit thing, but the entire pro thing is still with every plugin in Rocket and everything is 17.6 right now. So it is still so small that like for most situations that you're using a pro thing, like an enterprise thing where you're like, it is just a non-issue. If you're worried about TCP slow start and all that, then yeah, get in the bundler and take the things out you want. I am right now, the bundler is probably broke. If you do, like, I don't know, I'll have to look at that, but I'm going to try to make it to Rocket is just say on off. Like you're not going to ask for data if and did all like the internal plugins. It's like, no, either you get Rocket or you don't get Rocket. That's it.
Yeah.
Um,
What when
So
you say broken, you mean like in the development branch? This
the
not
bundler itself, I don't know if it would actually do the rocket stuff correctly right now. I'm just letting people know that I like, depending on when you see this podcast, hopefully if you just see rocket in the bundler for pro, then it's fixed. If not, then like talk to us or put an issue in, because that's low on my priority right now. Fixing the actual APIs and stuff is where I've been focusing on.
right.
Just a heads up.
Yeah, we have a ways to go until I think
Yeah,
until we release Rocket, and we may align that with a V1 stable. I
I
mean,
think
there's
so.
no
I think they're
reason
going to
we
come
need
together.
to, but
Well, I just think it's like
it's
they should go together, because all dog fooded.
yeah.
Like there's more. We have more to do, but it's going to happen through dog fooding on it, and we'll know pretty quickly that we're on the right track. And then if it's bug fixes, it's bug fixes. So
Yeah. And just a reminder for everybody, if you are considering Pro, it is a lifetime license. You have nothing to lose from buying it sooner, only actually something to gain. And just fair warning, like when V1 stable drops, there probably will be a price bump, small one,
yeah,
but at the moment you can get reduced, like a discounted pricing. I've also been working on stuff. I kind of want to talk about what I've been working
yeah,
on,
no,
even though you've been less involved in it.
yeah. I
Um,
want to hear everything. You've been. It's been interesting because everyone's been kind of quiet on the team. Everyone's been like, "Hey, I've been actually showing videos, but otherwise, everyone's been real quiet lately. It's been
yeah,
a little scary." So
yeah. Well, I've gone deep on the tooling for PHP in terms of Datastar, and obviously, like I work with Craft day in day out, so that's my bread and butter too. So the Datastar plugin the Craft CMS plugin for Datastar. From the beginning, I think was well planned and well architected, and I've just been building on that incrementally. But the Laravel package, since I'm not really a Laravel developer, I don't do much with it. It was kind of bare bones to begin with, but somebody's gotten involved and he's built a to-do application, which is a standard kind of thing. But this has authentication as well, so you can log in and then you get your own to-do app, and you can, um, and it's all very nicely done. And he has much more experience in Laravel, so we've been working back and forth.
you should give him
Um,
a shout out. Like I can't say his
yes,
name. He's got an awesome name.
I would like to give him a shout out. I don't know his name either. I just have his Discord username. But I think he's in Cameroon, so
Yeah.
we've been going back and forth, and we're kind of on the same time zone. Me being in Central Europe. Um, but he's been extremely helpful. I will give him a shout out next time once I learn his name. I promise. Um, and this all started because he was asking some questions. I was like in Discord, and I was like, "Why are you doing that? That doesn't, like, you have a templating language, you've Blade," and he brought up like issues. So we've been doing a lot of back and forth. Um, it's kind of difficult to explain the gravity of it, but essentially, the way I'm looking at it is like I'm taking on livewire, right? And livewire is there are two very popular ways of doing front end reactivity in the Laravel world. One is livewire, and the other one is inertia. Inertia is very much connected to SPAs, so you can connect it to React or Vue.js or your uh, really any of your SPA front end framework kind of things. Livewire takes well, yeah, I guess the more hypermedia approach, although it does it in a roundabout way. Um, Livewire 4 was actually just announced, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago at the Laracon US. Um, and it's interesting. I was watching this because I thought, okay, what's Caleb going to do? Because uh, in Livewire, there are like three different ways of writing your components. Like there's the original way, then there was the second way. Now they released Volt, so you have single file components, all this. Um, well, he introduced a fourth way to do it, which kind of brings them together, but it kind of brings those three into one way. But there are now kind of four ways, which to me is kind of crazy. It kind of feels like, okay, we're not there yet. In each major version, we're trying to get closer, but it's kind of like the finish line is just keeps getting further away the more you keep running. Um, And he introduced some interesting things, things like request cancellation, things like what he calls islands. Yeah, I know. Like you're making like a face of disbelief. Things that we just get as standard
I mean, it's
in
not like you need
Datastar,
a
right?
port controller is built into the browser or that like morphing works. Like,
Right. Well, the thing about Livewire and my big, I don't want to bash on Livewire here, but my big issue with it is when you use it, you're kind of get further and further away from the framework, from Laravel. You stop using controllers. You kind of stop using routing to controller actions because everything happens in Livewire components, which kind of means that Livewire is recreating the entire kind of developer experience for you. I've been going through the Laravel docs a lot. Page 1 of the basics of using Laravel is routing, and page 3 or page 4 is controllers. You don't get to use those when you're using Livewire. So I imagine for, a fresh developers looking at Livewire, reading the docs, Laravel, reading the docs, and then they have to learn an entirely new way of doing things if they come onto a Livewire project. My biggest issue with that is that it's not embracing, well, it's building on top of the framework rather than using what the framework already gives you, right? And with Datastar, the Datastar package, I am really trying to find that fine balance between convenience and simplicity, but not doing a bunch of magic and not recreating how Laravel already works, which for the reason people love Laravel is because it works so well and because it's so well documented and all of this thing. It made me realize that the hype around Livewire and Livewire releases is because people are waiting for things that they can't do until Livewire adds it, like request cancellation, uh, things like modals and loading indicators were just announced, and I'm thinking, of course, people are on the edge of their seats because they need these. You need these features. Why are they only
yeah.
coming in version 4, or even islands? Caleb Porzio released a feature called Islands, which is like a non-issue in Datastar because in Datastar everything's out of band, right? You can swap, like, you don't need an island because you're not limited in scope to a component.
What issues are coming up now that we know that Datastar makes a lot of things easier? What things have been difficult in that transition for you?
Well, it's about matching the developer experience, right? Because that is
Mm.
something that attracts developers to Laravel in general, is that it has a great developer experience. Part of that is that it does a bunch of magic for you. So when you're using Datastar, of course, responses are not coming back as HTML. So things like redirects don't work. Error handling has to be dealt with. So I'm dealing with those things: validation, authentication, error handling. Those things all have to be handled. I can't kind of just say, oh, throw my hands up and say I'm not going to deal with that, because there does need to be a simple way to use Datastar. So I'm trying to lean on the framework as much as possible and not recreate anything that you already get out of the box. I actually did a quick comparison of the repos. So Sprig is, and also to give this a timeline, right? Like Livewire is, I think it's 6 or 7 years old. I think it started in 2019. Sprig, which is a plugin that kind of builds on top of HTMX for Craft CMS, which I wrote in 2020. That's around 5 years. That's also very well established. Sprig is just over 2,000 lines of PHP code.
Oh.
And then, of course, for the JavaScript part, it uses HTMX. So HTMX is about 16 kilobytes compressed, something like that. The Datastar plugin is 1,150 lines of
That's less,
PHP
right?
code.
Is that less?
That's a bit less than 2,000. That's almost
Okay.
half, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, the Datastar plugin uses 11 kilobytes of JavaScript, right? Because that's the framework.
10.
Livewire, 17,000 lines of PHP. That's 15 times bigger than the Datastar plugin. And the livewire JavaScript file is just under 60 kilobytes compressed. And livewire has 2 full-time devs on it, right? So we don't have the resources for that. I don't want, a Laravel package to be my full-time thing. I don't have time for that. So here, it's kind of like us taking on Tailwind or taking on Lit or taking on something like Livewire. It's just about how can we be smarter? How can we lean on web standards, or in this case, what the framework already gives us? And it's not that that's easy, but we really are embracing simplicity, and that's what allows us to, I think, be very productive and move fast. Because between the three of us, who none of us are being paid or working on this full time, right? Sometimes it feels like we are working for free full time, but I think we do it because we love it, and because all three of us, once we find a problem, we just go deep on it, and we get into the zone, and that's what we love to do. So the fact that we're able to move in this way, be agile but go very deep and focus on simplicity, I think it's a really exciting space. So that's what I've been focusing on, getting the Livewire package to a place where I think I would feel comfortable, publicly to the Laravel community saying, "Hey, try this because here, you need less, and you can do more with the framework, and you have everything you need, right? You don't need to wait. Like with Livewire, every request to the backend is a post request. So you can't use put, you can't use patch, you can't do RESTful APIs, right? You're just locked into this one way of doing things, which
Yeah.
uh, just robs you of all the possibilities that Laravel as a framework actually gives you.
And there's times when you'll pay that cost of having something that's a little annoying if you're getting performance benefits out of it. And I know there's basically an equivalent of Livewire in Clojure, and we have some people that are users of Datastar that are doing stuff in Clojure right now that they have examples in Livewire or the equivalent of that in Clojure. I forget the name of it, but or I think it's Electric is the name of it. And then they've done the Datastar way of doing it, and their numbers are just murdering it. So there's things like virtual scroll and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of different ways of doing that, and it's not even close. And so it's bigger. That's the thing that it's one thing if it's like, look, this is the more efficient way to do things. Like I love low level binary formats and all that stuff, but it better beat the other numbers. Like there's a cost to that. And what's weird is people are paying this cost and they're getting worse performance. That's more of a popularity contest than an actual technical argument. And it'll be interesting to see going forward. Like, you're better at giving talks than I am. I'm too combative, but there's got to be someone that can say, guys, stop hating yourself. There is a better and easier way, and we are trying to help.
Yeah.
So,
well, I do have a conference talk coming up in just over a month, a Craft CMS conference, and I will be giving a talk about Datastar, which is why I'm so deep on the PHP stuff now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm using Datastar. It's so fun. It's so fun creating demos.
It is
pretty
fun.
much almost every one of my slides. Well, not every, but because I have some code samples, but every slide on which I'm showing how Datastar works is a demo. And I'm kind of going all out. This might be a risky thing. I hope I don't regret it. But I'm going to have audience participation, so the audience can actually interact. So my demos are going to be in production on a server that the audience can interact with.
I do need to make the QR code Rocket web component for you, so you can put that on screen, so you can link to it and stuff like that. I need to knock that one out for you, so that you'll have that one.
That would be a Delaney solution to the Ben solution is just put a PNG, put it as an image.
No,
the Delaney solution is
I'm going to make an actual
it's a
Rocket
web component,
and you just give it the link to the text you want in your QR code, and it generates a QR code for you, and it makes a little Datastar icon PNG as part of it. Come on, that's it dynamically generates the SVGs. That's what web components are for, right?
Yes.
That's not a
Yeah.
Delaney answer. That's just the answer.
Well, I just need an image on the screen, right?
Yeah, but
To
what
a
if you want to change
URL.
it? But what if one of the demos you want to? What if your first demo? Oh, so you, like now we're cooking. Your first demo is you typing in what the URL is gonna be like. The thing is, and it's updating the QR code of okay. Now you want to go to this website. Like you could have it with the wrong one when you start, and then fix it and go. Oh, now you guys can go to it. Showmanship,
That's
baby.
yeah.
Showmanship,
That sounds entertaining. So I'm
right?
all about entertainment.
Yeah, just put the wrong thing in or put a question mark on the screen and then you type like you copy paste your thing in and say,
Yeah.
"Okay, now you guys have a QR code."
I love that we can do this. Like the
It's so
going
easy.
from the conception of an idea to like actually
No, I'll have that done later
implementing
tonight.
it.
I have some work
Yeah.
stuff to do. I have work to do, but
I
like
don't
after that, I'll have that done tonight. I'll have a
I
rocket
don't
component
doubt
for
you
QR.
will. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I got another
Well,
demo.
well then there. We'll in the podcast there. I have like instead of talking, I should go make a QR rocket thing and make sure
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah, my talk is pretty much demos and games like that the audience is going to be
Yeah, and those
playing
are
with
fun.
me and seeing the results on screen.
Yeah.
And really because I want to show like I did a talk 2 years ago about Sprig and front end reactivity, and that's solved. Like that
Yeah.
it's I've talked about this before. You can get 90% of the way to pretty much everything you want to do with HTMX and Sprig, things like that. But that last 10%, how do you deal with that? And that's where all the fun stuff is. That's
Yeah.
where all the creativity on the back end comes in.
I still think it's crazy that it's almost a year ago, like almost to the day. Like we're getting close. It's within a 2 week window of when I first listened to you on the podcast going up and saying, "Man, he seems a little angry, but he like really wants to make this work." And it's the last 10% that you were spending 90% of your time on. You're like, I don't know how to solve this.
Well,
That was the interesting
yeah,
part.
I was spending all of my time trying
Yeah.
to get it, and I just hit that wall, and I was like, okay, I need to look somewhere else.
Yeah. No, it's exciting because this is where the fun, like, especially now that the 90%'s done. I mean, even the idea that like, oh, I'm just going to make a QR thing that is a template that you could put anywhere and it'll just work and you won't have to do a build or anything. You could just drop it into your PHP slides. Like you just drop it on the page of like the thing that I'm going to make myself in Go. Like, how great is that? Like, we were like, I was in a Twitter thing the other day or yesterday where people were like, yeah, I don't really see the value of Rocket compared to Lit and stuff. And I'm like, I can just copy and paste. Like, I can have the way that people see or Tailwind and they use Tailwind Pro, they can copy a section of the Tailwind UI and just put it on their page and be like, okay, this isn't exactly what I want, but I can start from here. Like having a web component that you can just copy paste any web component of anything anywhere and just put it into your template. I don't know. That seems pretty
Yeah,
magical.
it's like thinking about Tailwind UI as like one component. Like
Yep.
why would I need one component? But when you have a library of them or you have a
Yeah.
collection of them, you can like pick and choose and bring them together. Then you see the utility in that.
One thing that I haven't brought up to you yet, but again, the podcast is sometimes times to talk about this stuff is one of the things I was thinking about in the ADR the for Datastar is literally having a thing for Rocket things where you basically have a like if you have a template language in the background, you basically have a known way to basically add Rocket templates into your thing, so it automatically fetches and grabs the right one, or like a way to
Oh
do
yeah.
that. So I've been
You
thinking
mean
about how
the ADR for the SDKs
yeah, for the SDK, so
specifically?
that you literally everyone has a way to like include Rocket on a page. Like
Yeah.
that just becomes a thing that you can do. I don't know if it's at a template level or if it's at a data star level. Like, can you SSE in these templates and make it part of the merge frag? Like, can that be something imperative? I'm thinking about like there might be something there. But for the
Yeah.
most part, you could just SSE in web components dynamically.
Yeah. I'm just aware that we're using a lot of acronyms like ADR, SDK, and SSE. And to
Uh,
be, yeah,
what
but
about Galactus
I
and
mean,
Nemo Bingo? Like, I'll have to find a link to that. That's the best.
yeah. But just quickly on the topic of the conference talk, like my one concern is if you blow away people too much, maybe they can't bring that back to the way that they just build craft sites. Like I'm trying to just make sure that I want to show this is the last 10%. It's for me, Datastar solves the front end
Mm-hmm.
and still keep that connection with, hey, you're building client sites. How could
Yeah.
this be still relevant to you?
I mean, that's the part that I struggle with because when I would show people all the real time stuff and all that, people are like, well, like that's cute for games, but I'm doing a CRUD app. And I'm like, why do you think that it can't do that if it can
Yeah.
do this? Like, I don't, like, that's just less of this at a slower frame rate. Like, it's the same, like,
Right.
bytes are going over the wire, you're showing HTML. I don't see the difference between these two things. So, um, I think that people just aren't used to the idea that, like, you can structure things in that way. Like, but you hopefully will find you'll be better at that than I have been. I mean, the talk that I was going to give at Big Sky was literally starting at a hello world. And so in like, hey, I like hypermedia. I want to keep doing hypermedia. How do I do hypermedia all the way through? And then by the end of it, getting up to a trillion like cell spreadsheet. I don't know if that would just be too much too far, but like I, the thing is, we're at the point now where hearing it from us. Like I know it's your talk and stuff, but you're even doing it more as a user of it in the PHP land than just like talking about Daystar itself. I think we're getting to the point where people are going to have to start stepping up and doing their own talks. Like hearing it from me doesn't mean anything. You got to have user experience reports at this point. Like
Yeah.
even if I talked about what I'm doing at work, everyone's gonna be like, "Well, yeah, that's cute. That's for you." But
Yeah, and the context matters. Like here, the
mm-hmm.
context is a craft CMS conference, a
Right.
Laravel conference or a Go conference, or like the context in which you're using Datastar. What is the backend and how? Like we focus very much on the front end side of things because we're here, at least, we're talking about Datastar as the backend agnostic framework. But of course, backend context does matter to people, and that's where I think like there was a Kotlin talk, right,
Mm-hmm.
where they talked about how they're using Datastar. Something like that would be perfect if the community wants to help out. That's how they can help out. And of course,
Yeah,
our good friend Luis is still making videos about Datastar with Python. Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
very much
We
so.
need more of those.
Yeah,
In different languages and different backends, different ecosystems,
it
and
is
it's being
interesting.
picked up more and more.
Yeah, no, it's getting picked up, but it's still interesting to me where like people on like the dev Twitter are always looking for the next thing and next thing and next thing. Like it is interesting that it is not getting picked up by those people. It's almost like it's a bridge too far in that it's completely changing the way you build things. It's not just the app of the or the JS framework of the day. It's a fundamental change in how you think about the browser. That's been interesting to me. Like I'm glad that we're moving slowly. Like I don't want just mass adoption. I don't want just a Fireship or Primogen like name drop thing. I want people to come for the right reasons and really care about what they're doing. So
Same.
yeah, I would like a shout out from a Casey Moriarty like or like about like, hey, this is someone actually doing efficient stuff on the web. That would matter to me way more than just a name drop of like, here's the thing that I'm learning this week. So
Right.
yeah,
And we have some quite prominent people in the Discord community,
we
right? Who
do.
are, yeah. So we're gonna see if we can have some of them on at some point on the podcast to talk to us about how they're using Datastar. Um, I think, yeah, I think those could be really interesting conversations.
One of the ones that I have one of my buddies is like the guy who's written the books on audio programming and game programming in for game engines and stuff. And he's a C++ dev that is he's actually going back to Blizzard again. And he's really great. And I've been asking him to actually get in and try doing web stuff because he hasn't done web stuff in 30 years. But he's a really smart guy. And I'm like, maybe you should give Datastar a try because it's actually more what I think you think the web was back then. And it's just a better version of that. I'm going to try to get him on and actually have him do the guide and do a hello world and actually say, like, from a low level guy's perspective, what he thinks of as like timings and stuff like that. Because when we talk in microseconds, he's like, oh, you get milliseconds? What? That's great. So I do want to have more guests of that kind on that are talking more about their experiences and using it outside of what just normal web dev looks like. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm excited about people coming. Anyone that wants that wants to talk about this stuff, please come tell us your user stories. We need it.
cool. I think we've covered everything
Yeah.
that we wanted to, unless there's anything
Oh,
spontaneously.
I'm honestly excited for like Datastar stable, and we can be making great things going forward. I'm excited about all the things that we can do to build up an actual community. Because I thought the originally Daystar was going to be a bazaar of plugins, right? Like you were going to have this, like everyone's plugins were, And the answer is there's very few plugins that people actually attribute plugins that people absolutely need, and a lot of them are very niche. But with the Rocket and Stellar stuff, I can see an explosion of web components, an explosion of themes, an explosion of ideas around these things. And that to me is so exciting. I'm super stoked on that being the future. So that's it.
A- Agreed. Yeah. There's so much innovation that can happen there, and like I said earlier, like we're able to move so fast in relation to these big frameworks like the tailwinds and the lits. So yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
All
Cool,
right.
guys.
See you next time.
All right. See you.